You didn't imagine it. Your life really is turning into one giant subscription. You buy a car, but it wants a monthly fee to turn on the heated seats. You buy a movie, and it disappears when a platform changes a licensing agreement. You buy cloud storage, and your own photos, your memories, your life are suddenly held hostage behind a monthly bill. So the real question is simple. If companies now design the world so you never truly own anything, what can you actually do about it? Today, we're going to talk about how you can start owning your stuff again, without becoming a hermit in the woods. By the end, you'll have a clearer sense of what it really means to control your life in an economy built on subscriptions. First, let's describe the problem in the simplest possible way. Imagine you buy a toy truck. You pay full price, you bring it home, and you even write your name on the bottom. But then the person who sold it to you says, "Oh, by the way, if you want the wheels to turn next year, that's a monthly subscription. And if you stop paying, I'll lock the wheels so you can only look at it." You instantly recognize that something is wrong. Yet that's exactly what's happening with modern cars, printers, software, cloud storage, and even books. You press buy now, but what you actually get is something closer to, "You may use this, as long as we continue to allow it." The first layer is the physical things you use: your car, your phone, your TV, your appliances. The second layer is your memories and your work: your photos, videos, documents, creative projects, and ideas. And the third layer is the systems you depend on: internet access, payment companies, platforms, cloud services, phone carriers, and app stores. For each layer, you can ask yourself a very simple question. If someone else can take this away from me tomorrow, do I really own it? Once you see the world through that lens, it becomes easier to spot where you've traded ownership for convenience, sometimes without realizing it. Let's start with the physical things. A smart product sounds exciting because it updates, connects, syncs, and automates. But every smart feature is also a potential lever of control. A smart car can be remotely updated, which also means remotely restricted. A smart TV can receive new software, which also means new ads, removed features, or tracking you didn't ask for. A smart appliance needs an app, which also means the company can quietly end support one day and leave you with a machine that suddenly works worse than the day you bought it. None of that happens with simpler versions of the same tools. A basic car may not be flashy, but nobody can remotely disable your seat warmers or limit your battery range. A simple TV with an HDMI port is just a screen. It works the same next year as it does today. You don't need to abandon technology. You just need to be intentional about when smart actually benefits you, and when it mostly benefits the company selling it. Then there's the second layer: your memories and your work. Your photos and videos aren't just files. They are snapshots of people you love, moments that won't happen again, and experiences that shaped who you are. Yet many people now store their entire digital lives inside a single cloud service tied to a monthly subscription. That's like giving every drawing, journal entry, and photo album you own to someone else and saying, "Please keep these safe for me forever." While they reply, "Sure, as long as you keep paying, and as long as we don't change our rules later." A healthier approach is to treat your memories like physical heirlooms. That means keeping at least one local copy of your photos, videos, and important documents on something like an external hard drive or a home storage device. If you want a backup in the cloud, great. But now the cloud is extra protection, not the only home for your life. The goal isn't paranoia. The goal is simply to make sure that a corporate policy change doesn't erase your history. One of the most important and least understood parts of modern ownership is the right to repair. In a world filled with software locks, many products you buy technically belong to you, but you aren't allowed to fix them. Imagine buying a bicycle and being told that if the chain slips, only the original store is legally allowed to pop it back on. That sounds silly, but that's exactly what happens with tractors, phones, cars, and even restaurant equipment. When you can't repair something you bought, you don't fully own it. You're just leasing it indefinitely while being forced to rely on the company for permission to keep using it. Supporting right-to-repair laws, choosing brands that allow parts and manuals, and using independent repair services doesn't just save money. It protects the very concept of ownership. Now zoom out to the third layer, the invisible systems you depend on. In the modern world, a handful of corporations control access to payment processing, app distribution, internet connectivity, cloud hosting, and digital identity. If one of them decides you violated a policy, or even just can't verify your identity, your financial accounts can be frozen, your apps can stop working, your account can disappear, and your access to your own purchases can vanish. That is an enormous amount of power concentrated in very few hands. You don't have to become a hacker to protect yourself. You just need to reduce how dependent you are on any one company. That means having more than one way to pay for things, more than one place where your important files exist, more than one doorway into the digital world. If one system shuts you out, your life becomes inconvenient, not impossible. Owning things again will sometimes feel like a little extra work. A simpler car might mean fewer flashy features. Backing up your photos requires plugging in a hard drive every month or two. Repairing something instead of replacing it takes patience. Reading the fine print before clicking I agree takes a few extra minutes, but that extra effort is the cost of real autonomy. Convenience always comes with a hidden price, and lately, that price is control. The less effort you invest in maintaining your own tools, your own copies, and your own systems, the more those tools quietly belong to someone else. So what does it look like in practice to own your life again? It means choosing products that don't require ongoing permission to function. It means keeping your most important memories somewhere that cannot be switched off remotely. It means understanding that subscriptions aren't inherently bad, but you should choose them rather than depend on them by default. It means supporting laws and companies that respect your ability to repair, modify, and maintain what you purchase. It means spreading your digital footprint so no single organization has the power to erase your identity with the push of a button. It means recognizing that what looks like a product is increasingly a service, and deciding when you're willing to live with that and when you're not. We are entering a world where the line between owning something and renting it has become intentionally blurry. A car is no longer just a machine. It's a platform. A book is no longer just an object, it's a license. A phone is no longer just a device. It's a gateway, controlled by a handful of corporations. That doesn't mean you have to panic or reject modern life. It simply means you should open your eyes. If someone else can lock, limit, alter, or revoke the thing you paid for at any time without your consent, then you don't fully own it. And if you don't own the tools you use to work, travel, communicate, and remember, then little by little, you don't fully own your life either. You can't fix the entire economy by yourself. You can't stop corporations from chasing recurring revenue. But you can choose where you participate. You can choose when convenience is worth the trade, and when it isn't. You can choose to anchor your life in things that belong to you, physically, permanently, and without permission. And you can start small, one device, one habit, one decision at a time. Because if the future really is designed so that you will own nothing, then the most meaningful act of independence is incredibly simple.